Thank you all already. Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Temple City Council for Wednesday, November the 15th. Thank you for readjusting your schedules to accommodate the council to move from Thursday to Wednesday night. Our first order of business this evening is an invocation, and Father Tom Chamberlain with Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church will lead us in the invocation, and then Sharon Long with Bell County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, and she is our Tax Assessor Collector, will lead us in the pledge. Father.
And let us pray. Almighty God, we recognize that all authority comes from you. We pray for all of those who exercise authority here in our city and this mayor and city council. As King Solomon prayed for wisdom, that he may govern wisely, we pray for wisdom for these men and women who serve our community in this capacity, that they may truly be wise in the decisions that they make for the true good of the community and for your praise and for your glory. Help them to listen carefully to the information presented to them and to prayerfully and thoughtfully reflect upon what they hear and be open and honest in their evaluation of the issues that are involved. Guide them to know and understand the issues as fully as possible, that they may truly make wise decisions and sometimes courageous decisions on difficult issues. So, Lord, all of this we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm not sure where Judge Burroughs is. I haven't seen him. But I do have money for you.
Well, then we'll let you go next.
Oh.
We don't need a judge.
Sharon has probably stopped on excess road coming from Belton, Texas.
Probably. It's my honor to present you with a check for the child safety fees that are collected through the Motor Vehicle Department for each vehicle that's registered in Bell County. And the amount of the check is $69,506.24.
Correct.
This is a little bit of an increase from last year. What I'd like for you to do, when you're in the office the next time, if you could just, thank the girls that work the line. They're the ones that are collecting these fees, and they do a good job for Bell County, and they deserve a lot of thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Sharon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for what you do for our county.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Great.
Can I trust you, David? Okay.
We'll check with her later and make sure she can. Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for the pledge. Next item on the agenda is to receive a report from the Solid Waste Division regarding operations and the holiday garbage, brush, and bulk collection schedules. Mr. Butcher.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
How are you all?
Doing great, thanks.
I'm in front of you tonight because I'd like to talk a little bit about our holiday collection for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's and MLK for solid waste. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Okay. We have gotten this information out to our customers, but we felt like we really wanted to kind of go through it one more time. We've had utility stuffers that went out in January. It's been on the website. It goes out in new customer packets. It's been in the Temple Daily Telegram. It's been on the government access channel. But if anybody has any questions, the phone number is 298-5725 for solid waste, and you'll see that phone number again later on in the presentation. Thanksgiving. Well, this was what we were going to do for Thanksgiving, but the weather kind of gave us an opportunity to make some changes. When we started the new brush program, we had a section in there that if something were to happen that would create an awful lot of brush that was unexpected, that the city manager could declare it an event. And based on the winds we've had today and the amount of tree pieces that are falling down all over town, we will be picking up brush at no charge from now through the end of November. Just people put it out when they can. Basically, we're going to have to pretty much suspend the schedule. We'll get to it as fast as we can, and we're going to start on this tomorrow, and we're just going to go through the month of November because of the situation that we have.
Mr. Butcher,
Yes, ma'am.
Go right
would you mind repeating that?
Okay, we will pick up brush. Our customers can put their brush out anytime between now and the end of November, and we will pick it up at no charge. It won't be on there. They don't have to worry about their particular pickup day or anything like that. We're just going to go through and clean up everything from this storm, and that's the direction we need to be going.
I was going to ask you to put that on Channel 10 as well.
Yes, we're going to get news releases and everything. Since this just happened today,
Sure.
you're the first people that are hearing it.
Okay.
All you want, but not bulky.
Not
Only
bulky,
brush.
no, sir,
Let's
not bulky.
clarify, it's
Brush.
It's not anything, it's brush only.
Right, tree limbs and things such as that, but not all the other stuff.
Yeah, and let me, if I can, just
Nor
interrupt.
mix.
Nor mix, no.
If I can, just interrupt briefly. Bruce had sent me a couple of notes just a few minutes ago, literally, as they have been going out through the day, assessing the situation around the city. And as anybody who's been out today knows, we've had a little bit of wind today. And that wind has created, and council may recall, we had discussions when we were considering changes and modifications to our brush and bulky item program. One of those considerations that was written into the ordinance, written into the policies, was that if an event occurs, then or I can suspend, in essence, those rules and policies and try to respond to that situation as best we can. After the discussions that we had via some email just a little while ago, and the number of events that are occurring all over town right now, and probably more that we'll find out tomorrow and as the day goes by, it's going to take us several days to get caught up again as a result of the wind conditions that we've had. So I indicated to him just a few minutes ago that I considered an event to have occurred, and let's put that into place and move forward. So that did alter on very short notice the program and the collection schedule that he was about to present tonight.
Good job.
Now, with that said, let's talk about regular solid waste. Regular solid waste service on Thanksgiving holidays. Thursday, Thanksgiving, there will be no collections. Friday of the Thanksgiving holidays, there will be no collections. This is the only time all year that we have once a week pickup for our customers. The second part of this slide deals with brush collections, and that really doesn't apply anymore because of the wind that we've had. On Christmas, for the Christmas holidays, Friday, December 22nd, there'll be no change in the schedule. Monday, December 25th, which happens to be Christmas Day, there will be no collections, and the solid waste will run one day late that week for the first 2 days. So in other words, the Monday, folks that normally get picked up on Monday, if Monday is your day and that happens to be Christmas Day, you'll be picked up on Tuesday. If you normally get picked up on Tuesday, the day after Christmas, you'll get picked up on Wednesday that week. Brush collections, there's no change in schedule for Friday, December 22nd, and Monday, December 25th, which again is Christmas Day. The brush and bulk will run one day late that week also. Monday's area will run on Tuesday, and Tuesday's area will run on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday is just the same way as it always has been. New Year's Day, the same kind of thing for New Year's Day. Monday's collection schedule will be on Tuesday. Tuesday's collection schedule will be on Wednesday for solid waste, regular solid waste. And the brush collection will run one day late. Monday's area will be on Tuesday. Tuesday's area will be on Wednesday. Okay. It's a lot less complicated than I make it sound. I promise you that. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, garbage collections, all collections will run on regular schedule, and all collections for brush and bulk on Martin Luther King will run regular schedule. That gets us through the holiday period. Last slide, if there are any questions, here's our phone number again, 298-5725, that's our solid waste department. And we appreciate the opportunity to serve our customers, and we wish everybody the best for the holiday season and the coming years ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good luck
Any
with
questions?
this event.
Yeah, event, opportunity.
Opportunity to serve. Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Mr. Butcher? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the presentation. Well, our next guest is coming forward, Mr. Lee Peterson with Temple Economic Development Corporation. I want to recognize a young man who's here tonight working on his Boy Scout merit badge. Mr. Jonathan McCormick is here tonight, and I'd like to recognize a good friend of mine. Jonathan, would you stand up and let us recognize you tonight? Thank you. And his mom, Amy McCormick's here with him this evening. Thanks for being here, Jonathan. Next item is to receive an annual report on the operations of the Temple Economic Development Corporation from the President of TEDC, Mr. Lee Peterson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, very pleased to be here. Thank you for taking the time to give us this opportunity to talk a little bit about Temple and its growth and prosperity. I'm sorry I'm so slow at handing this out.
If you'd just like to give those to one of us, we'll pass them out for you.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I would like to take just a moment and introduce the members of our board that are here. Our board chairman for next year, Mr. Gary Schmidt. Of course, Mayor Bill Jones, David Blackburn, and Russell Snyder are all part of the board of Temple Economic Development Corporation. I also have the people who make Temple Economic Development Corporation work. Diane Cates, our office manager, please stand up so people can see you. Nobody knows who you are, Diane. Diane Cates, we have Jonathan Scott, Director of Marketing, Communications, and something else. Yeah, thanks. And John Claret, Vice President of TEDC.
Thanks to all of you for being here.
The Temple Economic Development Corporation represents government and the private sector leadership working together for the economic advancement of Temple. Our mission is to facilitate development of the best jobs, best opportunities, and best quality of life for the people of Temple. Just a reminder, don't forget who took you to the dance. In all the new things we do and all the new directions we take, we have people that have been operating in this city for many, many, many years, paying employees. That's a picture of the North Industrial Park. Paying employees, paying taxes. It is a powerhouse of growth. Our North Industrial Park is one of the most magnificent industrial parks I have ever seen, and it is something to behold. So as we make decisions about moving forward, let's not forget who got us where we are. The leadership of the Temple Economic Development Corporation is comprised of the leadership of Temple. The City of Temple has the mayor, the city manager, and Councilman Snyder. Reinvestment Zone number 1 has a variety of board members on TEDC. The Health and Bioscience District has several board members. Education is covered by Dr. Mark Nigliazzo from Temple College, from the superintendent of Temple Independent School District and Belton Independent School District, leaders of the Chamber of Commerce, and most importantly, those people that represent the private sector who are paying people and paying taxes every day. Shortly after I came to Temple, we asked you, as the City Council, to sit down with our board and talk about what it is you thought we'd ought to do. From that meeting, we heard the following. We wanted to expand the tax base. We wanted to work on transportation, health, and biosciences. There needed to be a priority for funds for retention and expansion of existing business. We talked about a living wage, and what is that? And should we provide better incentives for better jobs? You ask us to capitalize on existing infrastructure and location. You wanted a long-term plan with the emphasis on infrastructure development and marketing. And the most interesting thing was the City Council will make resources available to make good deals happen. We haven't forgotten. About a month after that, we sat down with the TEDC board and we said, okay, we know what the City Council wants. Now, what is it you want? The directives and objectives they gave us were as follows: create tactics and tools to guide effective and efficient TEDC operations, provide leadership and build consensus for directed economic development and growth in the Temple community, achieve measurable economic development objectives and report progress against these objectives annually to the TEDC board, manage the pipeline of new opportunities for the city's targeted industries, create and maintain high-quality jobs and businesses in Temple, create effectively and communicate effectively and frequently with the TEDC board, and whenever appropriate, close the deal. And this is how we are meeting the challenge. We are building a great organization. We are creating tactics and tools to guide effective and efficient operations. We are communicating effectively and frequently with the board of directors. We are providing leadership and managing the pipeline. We are getting results. Create and maintain high-quality jobs and businesses in Temple, achieve measurable economic development objectives and report progress, and whenever possible, close the deal. And if you will notice, as we continue, it's very important to everyone that we close the deal. In building a great organization involves effective and frequent communications with our board. We've done a variety of things. We have a quarterly newsletter. We have a new phone tree that allows our executive committee to talk directly with board members when projects are important. We have, thanks to Drayton McLean and Jay Daniel and others, we have a quarterly CEOs meeting where we're talking about issues that are important to the CEOs in Temple. We have a long-standing plant managers meeting where we talk with those folks about what's important to them. We have direct involvement with our local industry on a very consistent basis. And our number one priority is the health and expansion of our existing companies. At the office, we're building a team. We are doing everything with team concepts. We need to get to the point where we are driving the work instead of the work driving us. We've had a tough time in the last year trying to keep up with everything, and we'd like to get in front of that curve if it's possible. We are trying to develop and implement a business system for operational excellence. We're doing a wide variety of things, including professional project, return on investment analysis, cost-benefit studies to allow us to do a better job when we work with companies, trying to get them to come to Temple. And we are working as of the day I walked into town on a focused 5-year marketing plan and a community promotions plan, and those are a couple of things we'll go through with you on December 7th in our working session. In providing leadership, what to expect next. We're going to continue to concentrate on addressing workforce issues, and I know that you all know we've been very involved with workforce issues. We have worked with Fort Hood and the ACAP people and put our employers in touch with those. We have worked very closely with Temple College and with Temple ISD in trying to make sure our employers have the skilled workers that they need. We are working very closely with the RZ zone to expand the inventory of shovel-ready platted sites. We had a client in town yesterday. The client is looking at 3 communities. It is my belief as I stand before you, they're going to select the community that has the site that is most ready to move forward. I hope we're that site. We're going to focus on expansion and retention of existing business on a continuous basis. We're going to promote entrepreneurship and working with the business incubator in Temple, and we're going to work real hard to recruit businesses that fit our community. We are going to lead economic development efforts at the local level, the regional level, and the state level. I'm going to ask Mr. John Clary, if I was managing a sports franchise, I'd tell you that this was a year of rebuilding. But the amount of things that have been accomplished in a year of rebuilding is amazing to me, and I'd like John Clary to kind of go through some of the things that have occurred in Temple this year.
If you drive around town, you'll notice that there's an awful lot of things going on. There's a lot of highway construction. There's also an awful lot of building projects going on. And this is kind of a short, abbreviated list to some degree, but I want to focus on the industrial expansions that you see at the top there. And you can see the dots on the map, by the way, that are all over the map. So there's something going on in just about every quadrant of the community. The expansions are like Lee has mentioned, a lot of them are expansions of local companies, local industries that are creating primary jobs, expanding their tax base by putting additional square footage on the ground. And all of those kinds of things are on this list. Mayflower's in the middle of a planned expansion. They're building a 34,000 square foot building. They'll be in around the end of the year. Best Right is adding 50,000 square feet. Walmart just completed adding 50,000 feet. The city is dedicating a hangar on Friday morning for AMCOM OLR out at the airport for the helicopter repair. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to make a special notice of Acer Computer and Texas Hydraulics, which are companies that have been here for a number of years and have each of them have added over 100 jobs in the last year. And so we haven't been involved with all of these projects that you see on the list, but there are an awful lot of projects going on. There's a lot of retail. As all of you are aware, there's a 400,000 square foot retail shopping center going in at the northwest corner of I-35 in the Loop that's going to have as anchors a Target and a Home Depot, and that will go a long way toward increasing tax base and sales taxes and giving shoppers additional places to shop. Scott and White and the rest of the healthcare industry is just going great guns, and we are very, very pleased at everything that's going on there. The expansion of Texas A&M School of Medicine, the full four-year college next fall is going to be, it'll make Temple into a world-class bioscience arena. I'm going to, I think, stop there except for Holiday Inn and Residence Inn. We have 2 new hotels that are coming, and both of them are under construction right now. Just wanted to mention that, and that is providing us much-needed hotel space in Temple. We are one of the highest occupancy to hotel rates in the state, so I think it's very important that those are being built. So, Lee?
John, thank you very much. Lots of things have happened in Temple. Getting results, the record so far. Relationships with existing business is the most important thing that we do. We do continuous company visits. We are working with the rebirth of the Temple Industrial Foundation. Again, our quarterly plant managers group, our CEO forum, periodic one-on-ones with plant managers and others. We're getting to the point where our CEOs and plant managers are becoming a referral network so that their clients can become our clients. New business recruitment actions. We have worked very diligently with a private sector marketing group called Texas One. We have been on trips to Atlanta, Georgia, and New York City with Secretary of State Roger Williams, who does a marvelous job in economic development for the state of Texas. And those of you who don't know should be very proud and pleased of the Secretary of State. He does a wonderful job. We've been to a variety of trade shows. We belong to a variety of site selector groups trying to get people to look at Temple. We have had a wonderful time in having tours of Temple this year from people all over the country, mostly from Texas. Our belief is that people in Texas really don't know much about Temple. They do drive on I-35 right through town, but they have not been off the interstate to take a look at this community and what it has to offer. And when we drive someone to the North Industrial Park, they are amazed at what Temple has. We're going to continue to do that. We are in the process right now of working with private industry to build a spec building for Temple. 60,000 square foot, 30-foot tall building that can be used for either manufacturing or distribution, and hopefully we'll get started on that before the end of the year. Our measurables are aligned with the City of Temple. The important things that we need to do are business recruitment, business retention and expansion, new business growth through the Temple Business Incubator. Our business and economic development is very strange. Everyone wants things to happen real quickly, but the economic data that we get to reflect the growth doesn't come for a year or two. So we don't have any economic development activities, but what we really try to gauge is the mayor happy? And he appears to be okay. I saw him smile yesterday. So TEDC was at a crossroads, and Temple made the decision to move forward. You hired a new TEDC president, and nobody's sure yet whether that was a good idea, but it happened.
Do you know his name?
I don't. We have a new focus strategy and objectives. We have expanded our professional staff. We soon will have a new office. We have renewed purpose and renewed momentum. And so what's going on today? Given the current trends, economic development in Temple is not likely to get any easier. There are lots of people out there trying to do exactly what we are. It's not likely to get any less expensive. Although I want you to know we are optimistic that the local economy is strong enough and diverse enough to withstand outside pressures. But we will need to ensure that we have funding and support necessary to achieve the TEDC board and the City Council's directives. Continuous improvement and focus will ensure that we fulfill our mission. Our mission is to facilitate development of the best jobs, best opportunities, best quality of life for the people of Temple. TEDC has many partners, without who we could not accomplish much. Every day, TEDC staff and board interacts with you and your staff. The working relationship is excellent. Thank you for being the catalyst that allows our economy and our opportunities to grow and expand. We at TEDC appreciate your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate that. Council, questions for Mr. Peterson?
We do plan a work session on the 7th of December where we will go into great depth to answer whatever questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to be here. To John and particularly Gary, thank you for your leadership, Gary, with the board, and I think we're doing great things in the city of Temple thanks to your involvement. Lee, so far it looks pretty good after the first year, and it's hard to believe a year has already passed since you came on board. That's amazing. So, Jonathan, nice to have you on board with us as well. Thanks for your work on this presentation. Council, anything else on this item? Next opportunity is for public comment. We have no one that signed up this evening. Normally at this time we'd hear public comment from our citizens, and they would have the opportunity to make comments up to 3 minutes, but we have no one signed up this evening. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a council member, and it will be considered separately. Tonight we have items 6A through R, A through T, and I'd like to pull M and R. Are there any other items, council, that you'd like to be pulled from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to pull E, F, and G, please.
Okay. We will pull items E, F, G, M, and R from the consent agenda. If there's no other items, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items E, F, G, M, and R.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of those items mentioned. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 6E is, do you want to take all these together?
I do, and the reason I pulled these, it's the first time in, 5 years that we've had each of the scenarios that I think is important for the community. The first one has to do with getting local bids, but not the state law requiring us to go with an out-of-town vendor. The second one has to be with getting local bids, and the out-of-town vendor was cheaper, but our local preference allowed us to keep the dollars here with a one. And the third one is that our local vendor was the cheapest. Now, if you go over those real quickly, I think it's important for the people in the community to see how local preference works and gives us the opportunity to keep the dollars here, but also what state law requires, like in the first option, if you don't mind, Tina. Is that all right?
Let me read those items into the record, please, and then we'll let Ms. Meskey cover each of those. We'll take all three of them together, Tina, if that's all right. Item 6E is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the purchase of various vehicles from Planet Ford of Caldwell in the estimated amount of $188,964. Item F is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 dump trucks from Longhorn International of Temple in the amount of $223,421.27. And item 6G is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the purchase of 4 refuse trucks from Longhorn International of Temple in the amount of $505,281.51. And there's 3 different types of trucks in that particular item. 1 plastic side-loading refuge truck, 1 metal side-loading refuge truck, and 2 brush truck cabs and chassis. Ms. Miskey.
The bid tabs are good enough. I mean, you don't have to go through the whole thing if you want.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I just be general, or do you want to be very specific?
No, I think general's fine. I just want everybody to see, because I still get calls as well. I'm sure other council people do. There's not an understanding of how the local preference works and why we're spending money outside of Temple when local vendors are bidding and what does state law require and all that. So the bid tabs would be great, just saying, here's a broad thing of what was bid on, and here's how it came out, and here's why we did, and here's how our local preference helped us here, and those things. So,
Okay.
Thanks.
If you have those bid tabs, to be able to pull that up and show that on the screen,
I do have them.
either overhead or
This is good.
yeah.
On this particular one, these are half-ton extended cab pickups, and as you can see, it looks like Fisher Vincent Ford is the low bidder. However, they did not bid on one of the items, which was the light bar. Johnson Brothers Ford is our local vendor, and we do have a local preference, but our preference is for 3%, which is not substantial enough to make them the preferred vendor. That way, therefore, we went with Planet Ford because they did meet all the specs and they were the low bidder at
And
that
state
point.
law required that we go with the low bidder if they don't meet the local preference.
That's correct.
So I think that's the important thing, is that we don't have a choice
That's correct.
when we cannot meet that local preference 3%.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. The second one?
You want to do each vehicle?
No, just each bid
Okay.
tab.
Okay.
You can just sum up the whole thing in the next one. Like Johnson Brothers makes sense. Just do your
Okay.
second bid tab.
Okay. This one is a no bid. Is that the one you want?
No,
No,
ma'am. It would be
to
the
the-
second. It would be the second item.
The
Oh, I'm
Longhorn
sorry.
International bid.
I apologize. Get that in there. Is this the Relocation?
No, ma'am.
That's still not the right one?
There's another bid tab. It has the from October 24th, 2007 dump trucks is what ours is.
I have them out of order.
Oh, that's okay.
That's it.
Thank you. And really, it's just the Austin business was the low bid, but our local preference, 3%, allowed us to keep the dollars local even though they were higher. So we were able to keep those dollars local even though they were a little bit higher, which gave us the flexibility. So
That's correct. And another thing to point out is that Henna Chevrolet did not meet all of our specifications.
okay.
Henna Chevrolet did not meet all of our specifications.
But so we saw the first example why our dollars had to leave Temple, second example on how our local preference program allows us to keep them in Temple, and then the third one's really just a local vendor was low bid and we were able to do it. There's just a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of times we buy so much in vehicles and there's just people don't understand why we do it, and we are required by law if it's not within 3%, and whenever we can be within 3%, we always spend local. And so that's all. I just wanted people to, it's a good example on how each of those scenarios work. So thank you, Tim.
You want to see that last one as well, that item G? Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Miskey.
Thank you.
If there's no objection from the council, we can take those 3 items together, 6E, 6F, 6G, in one motion. It was your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Councilmember Schneider?
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 6M, consider adopting a resolution authorizing submission of a standard utility agreement to TxDOT for utility relocation necessary for phases 2 and 3 of the TxDOT Loop 363 highway improvements from 57th Street to 5th Street, which includes water and wastewater utilities along Loop 363 between 57th Street and 31st Street. Mr. Blackburn, you want to?
Mayor, I'd like to,
Comment
I
on
know
that?
that Mr. Butcher's name is attached to that, and I'll certainly call on him if I get too far astray on this. But what I want to do is point out a couple of quick items on this, and then also make a suggestion or a recommendation for modifying the recommendation that you have in your resolution based on some conversations that I've had today with the TxDOT district engineer. Just briefly, in terms of background, as the council's aware and the community's aware, there's a lot of work going on the South Loop right now. Dirt is moving out there, and that's a good thing. Concurrent with the work that's occurring, though, there are agreements still that are being put in place in terms of how cost sharing will occur between the city and TxDOT, as well as the work that will occur. So there are multiple moving parts associated with the project, including agreements that need to be finalized. I believe at your last council meeting, or maybe the council meeting before that, the phase 1 was authorized in terms of some utility or cost sharing for utility relocations, which is a key component for the city of Temple in regard to those projects is the cost with relocating the utilities in the existing right-of-way and then identifying the cost sharing or cost participation between us and TxDOT relative to that. The agreement or the resolution that you have before you tonight and the agreement that's attached to that we're recommending you authorize my signature on relates to what we're calling Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the Loop 363 highway improvements from 57th Street to 5th Street, which includes water and wastewater utilities along that line. As you know, we've been working with TxDOT for many years to improve our highways and transportation network in Temple, and again, that work is well underway and much more to come. It is a very complicated process, though, in terms of TxDOT guidelines as well as formulas at both the district level and the state level, which I'll say is TxDOT Austin and TxDOT Waco, just to differentiate the two. And their consultants as we try to identify some appropriate cost sharing as we relocate utilities. And I won't get into a lot of the details. Some of those are set forth in the memorandum that you have there. In terms of dollars, what the resolution has identified is, and I'll read from next to the last paragraph above the fiscal impact in the resolution there, and then I'll propose some language that I'd suggest for the resolution to change. But the total reimbursable amount under this agreement that we have before you tonight is that the TxDOT eligibility percentage would be 39.54%, which is about $1.2 million, a little more than $1.2 million. The city's share of this project would be approximately $2.1 million. It's noted that these costs are estimates for Phase 2 and the work actual construction, may move those just a little bit. So what I'd really like you to focus on is the percentages, not necessarily the dollar amounts, but the percentages is what we have been targeting. What we have been asking there, again, it's a complicated area, but over the course of many, many years, and even recent times to some degree, some of the right-of-way along the loop was city right-of-way, and there was some donation of that right-of-way or dedication of that right-of-way from the city to TxDOT. Concurrent with that, there were utilities that were in place in that right-of-way, or utilities that were put into place after that right-of-way may have been dedicated. What we have been in active discussions with TxDOT on is, could there be some sort of consideration given for some cost sharing or cost participation percentages above and beyond the formulas that perhaps TxDOT Austin uses for determining what their share is when they relocate utilities, in light of the fact that some of these right-of-ways that we're now having to move our utilities out of were once City of Temple right-of-way. And there has been some consideration given to that. I certainly can't sit before you tonight and say that TxDOT has agreed to modify the formulas and the numbers that they use in that process, but I can tell you that as late as just an hour or so ago, the district engineer had indicated that he is willing to have a little bit more discussion on that. So, with all of that said and all that background, in your resolution, Part 1 of that resolution reads that the City Council authorize the City Manager or his designee to execute a standard utility agreement after approval as to form by the city attorney for utility relocation necessary for the TxDOT Loop 363 highway improvements from 57th Street to 5th Street and 31st Street. I would suggest, and again subject to the city attorney's review also, some additional language that would say at an amount not to exceed 60.46% for the city's share of these expenses. That is, my intent behind suggesting that to you is the current TxDOT reimbursement percentage is 39.54%. We would not authorize, I'm not suggesting that you authorize a participation amount of less than that from TxDOT or more than that if you take the reverse. What I would like to do is over the next week or two have the opportunity to perhaps negotiate that number down or to the benefit of the city of Temple if we can. But in no means would it exceed the amount that's listed in here. The amounts that you have in your resolution are budgeted amounts. We have funds available to do that, and hopefully we can make those amounts a little bit more favorable in recognition for, again, some of the position and the efforts that we've made over the past few years to help expedite transportation projects. So that would be my suggestion and recommendation, and subject to city attorney making any friendly amendments to that suggested language. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Council, questions for the city manager? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve item M. Second.
We have a motion second to approve item M in a language that coincides with the city manager described, authorizing that reimbursement to not exceed 60.46% maximum city contribution. If the motion is satisfactory, then there are no further questions. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Tyler? Aye. Councilmember Reyes?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 6R is to consider adopting a resolution approving the fourth quarter financial results for the fiscal year ended September 30th of 2006. Ms. Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to present the quarterly financial statements for the fiscal year ended 2006. I have an overview of the general fund, water and wastewater fund, and hotel motel drainage, reinvestment zone, and capital projects, and then our investments. And we went over these in detail in a work session, and if it's okay with council, I'll just focus on the general fund, which is the major fund of the city.
That'd be great, thank you.
So we proceed with the general fund. The general fund total budgeted revenues were $46.1 million, close to $46.2. We ended the year at 105.91% of budget, and that is a favorable variance of $2.7 million. Just looking at the revenues that make up the $2.7 million, the revenues that exceed budget, our sales tax exceeded budget by close to $1.2 million, franchise fees $441,000, other revenues that consisted of a settlement from GXU, a settlement from another class action lawsuit on bulletproof vest, our auction of $432,000. Sanitation revenues exceeded the budget by $217,000. Landfill interest income, and then we had net other revenues, net positive or positive minus, that totaled $324,000 that made up the $2.7 million. Sales tax makes up about 27.6% of the total general fund budget. This year, our total increase was 7% over the previous year. Our 5-year average without the current past year had been 3.53%. Our 5-year average, including FY06, is 3.99%. Looking at how Temple compares to regional or cities within our region, our growth of 7% exceeded that of Salado, Killeen, and Waco. And Georgetown, Belton had pretty significant annual growths. But statewide cities were up for the 12-month period 13.83%. Our ad valorem taxes are the second major revenue source of the general fund. Looking at our current year collections of current taxes not delinquent, we collected, or the appraisal district collected 98.03% of those taxes compared to last year of 97.53%. Just again, we discussed several times during the year about some agreed judgments, tax suits, and then an error where a value was duplicated. This slide just shows how those were reported in the financials, and two of the amounts were adjusted out of the budget to more realistically reflect actual collections. Next slide, please. Looking at solid waste, just our growth in our residential customers, they grew by 2.71% over the previous year of about 445 customers. Just housing permit indicators for Texas, housing permits were up 12.5%. In Temple, housing permits were up 21.6%. Then going on into our general fund expenditures, a budget fund total of $47.2 million. We came in budget at 94.69%. That was a savings of about $2.5 million. Next slide, please. Just the source of that $2.5 million, personnel costs were about $1 million under budget. The same with operations, capital, $431,000. I'll note that about $500,000 of that $2.5 million does include carry forwards that will be carried forward to the next fiscal year. Within our other financing sources uses, we also included $750,000 worth of carry forwards that go into fiscal year 2007. Next slide just consistently shows our fiscal and budgetary policies that would consistently exceed our revenues exceed budget. This current year of 2006 is no different than the past years, 9 years, and again with our expenditures, consistently actual expenditures are less than budget expenditures. If you take the $2.7 million of revenues that exceed budget, $2.5 million of expenditures below budget, and then our other financing sources uses below budget, you have a total of $6.2 million. The way we allocate that $6.2 million is we have certain restricted reserves and that are that reduce that amount. We have encumbrances and carry forwards, which are commitments, contracts against the previous year's expenditures. Tonight on the budget, budget amendments, those were approved to carry forward of $1,269,000. We increased our fund balance designated for capital projects by $3.8 million. Technology replacement fund by $500,000. As our policy to keep 4 months worth of operational reserves, which would sometimes refer to as the rainy day fund. We increased that by $330,000. We have restricted revenues of the public education channel that were received from a cable franchise of $68,000. Restricted court revenues or fine revenues of $125,000. Another restricted revenue source of Vital Statistics Preservation Fund of close to $14,000, and other miscellaneous reserves of $106,000. Next slide, our fund balance designated for capital projects is a fund balance reserve that is used to fund pay-as-you-go capital projects. The past few years it has also been the reserve fund that's helped balance the budget, especially with our capital equipment. But that started the year out at, in October, $1.9 million. There were $300,000 of reallocations of funds within that reserve or designation. Council appropriated over $1 million from that fund, brought the balance to $566,000, and then with the $3.8 million allocation, the $1,341,000 reduction during the FY07 budget process, and a small reappropriation to the junior golf program. It brings that balance to begin the FY 2007 at $3,064,000. Today, that balance, there's in the last council meeting in FY 07, last two meetings, there's been some appropriations from that reserve or designation of funds, and the balance sets at $2,998,000. That concludes the general fund presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions or go further if you wish.
Great, thanks, Bernard. Ms. Bernard. Anyone wish to see any of the other funds? If not, let me just say, again, this is basically our end-of-year fiscal results, subject to the audit, of course. It again highlights what a great job our city staff does in controlling expenses, in just our overall budget policy. It's very conservative in our revenue estimates, and then the job that we do in estimating expenses, and then what a great job the staff does in holding those expenses down and below the budget amount. So the strength of our city continues to grow financially as a result of those policies. So congratulations to you and your staff on the reporting, but to the entire city staff, David, our congratulations and thanks for doing a great job of managing the funds of the city, citizens of the city of Temple. Entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve. Item.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution approving fourth quarter financial results for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2006. There's no other comments or questions. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Tyrell? Councilmember Dennis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider? Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 7 is the second reading, considering adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agriculture district to family district on approximately 1.244 acres of land commonly known as Outblock 2508A, City Edition, located at 906 South P Ridge Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This case was originally presented to City Council on September 21st, 2006. Considering that the case would require a supermajority vote to pass in order to be approved, the City Council passed a motion, and considering the fact that one of the members was absent, the Council passed a motion to table the case. The case was again presented to City Council on October 5th, and you passed a motion to approve the case as a planned development for the property with specific conditions that would have been determined before the second reading. These conditions would have related to the facing of the duplex that the applicant was proposing, access and orientation of it, and the requirement that the existing house on the tract be removed before the duplex could be used. However, the applicant has declined to produce a plan development application and the site plan that goes along with it, and has directed staff to present the case as originally submitted, from a zone change from agricultural to family. It's not on the consent agenda like most second readings are, because it could have stayed on the consent agenda and not been pulled and been potentially passed without unintentionally, basically. So we made the decision to present it as a regular agenda item. So I'll go on with the presentation at this point. The property is there in red on the aerial. It is at Tarver Road and P Ridge. There's a few developments in the area: Hurdle Elementary, which is part of Belton Independent School District, Westwood Development to the west, and then this is the entryway to the Hills of Westwood, which is further developed, and the entryway is actually completed now, as opposed to when the time that the aerial was taken. This is the top picture shows the existing single-family dwelling that's on the property, and the bottom photo shows the entryway to the Hills of Westwood, which is across the street from the parcel. Being that it's on a 1 acre tract, the council should be aware that the existing property is long enough, or is large enough, so that if this zone change were granted, the applicant could subdivide the property so that the existing house is on one lot and the duplex is on the other. Because of the minimum lot size requirements for the two-family district, she could go ahead and do that and end up with the house existing on one piece of land and the duplex on the other. This is a photograph of the property itself, just showing that Westwood development there in the distance. That's the main reason for the picture, and then it shows an existing pump house and well on the property. This is the future land use map for the area. You can see that the property is currently designated moderate density residential. The zone change to two-family is in compliance with that future land use designation, so a future land use map amendment would not be required in this situation. There are also community facilities designations to the north where the elementary school is, and then there are also neighborhood and community retail designations here to the northeast, and sort of to the southwest and west there is an office basically designation across Pea Ridge. This slide shows the zoning of the area. The school to the north is zoned agricultural, as is everything else that's not shown in the dark lines. So, excuse me, all of this is agricultural, and all of this stretch of land to the south is agricultural, including of course, the parcel shaded in yellow on the map. Single family 2, not to be confused with 2F duplex, which is what the applicant is applying for, but single family 2 is here to the west, which is the Westwood development. And then there are 2 planned developments across Pea Ridge that have the general retail and the office 2 designation. And as of recently, there's no structures on this land. It's been zoned that way, but no significant development activity has taken place there. The 2F, two-family district, has 2 basic elements in its purpose statement. One, that it is supposed to accommodate single-family dwellings and two-family dwellings, and the other part of the purpose statement is that it is to serve as a transition area between residential and non-residential areas of town. Notice was sent out early on for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and the Planning Office received, after sending out 5 notices to surrounding property owners, as shown in the gray area on the map, received 3 in favor of the zone change, one of them from the actual applicant herself. Since early on, we haven't received any other approvals or recommendations for denials, but as of now, 3 in favor and none for denial. The staff's recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission was to approve the zone change in light of the fact that the purpose statement recommends it to be a transitional area between non-residential and residential. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends denial of the zone change, and because of that, a supermajority is required from the City Council in order for this zone change to pass. And they voted 6-3. I don't know if I mentioned that. And I can answer any questions you might have on this case at this moment.
In your opening comments, did you say that she needs to subdivide this, or she could subdivide it?
Well, she couldn't have two. She couldn't have she would have to subdivide it if this were passed, and if she were going to build a duplex and already have the house on the same lot, because you couldn't have these 2 dwelling units located on the same lot. Okay. So she would basically have to.
Okay. So even if we approve the zoning change for her to build the duplex she wants to build, she has to come back with it replatted and then a site plan.
And not to the council, but it would be most likely administratively approved if it were approved. But the important thing is on the ground, you would see the house still there and the duplex building, if it were approved, still there on the ground.
But she had stated if it was approved, she would remove the house that's there now.
That would have been part of the plan development, recommended plan development conditions, which she doesn't want to pursue. Instead, she wanted to pursue a conventional zone change from agricultural to two-family.
Also, she could remove the house and build another duplex after she replatted it in 2 lots. So you
Yes,
could
because
potentially have 2 duplexes there.
the lot sizes are, the existing lot is big enough to be subdivided into 2 duplex lots, correct?
So she could do that, and it would then be administratively approved.
The plat would be administratively reviewed and most likely approved if it met our subdivision regulations.
Other questions?
I have concerns with putting duplexes in a entryway boulevard section to an area where offices and what have you. And in the past we've had denied around the corner some duplexes similar to this, a little bit different situation, but still duplex nonetheless. So I have concerns there with that.
Other comments or questions from the council? If not, entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion for approval of the item as recommended by staff for the zoning change from agriculture to two-family district. Is there a second to the motion? Hearing no second, the motion dies for lack of a second. Council, is there any other action you wish to take on this particular item? There being none, we'll move on to the next item. Item 8 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a street name change from 16th Street Alley to Luna Lane. Mr. Mabry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ed Luna has submitted a letter in accordance with city policy to have a piece, or the entire stretch of what's known as 16th Street Alley to be, the name to be changed to Luna Lane. This name change would be in honor of his parents and I apologize if I mispronounce, Tiburcio and Cayetana Luna, and also in honor, of course, of their ancestors who have made contributions to the state and to, of course, the city of Temple as well. Mr. Luna's parents lived in the area of the 16th Street Alley from the 1920s to the 1940s. An additional benefit of this name change could be to clear up any kind of confusion that might exist between the actual 16th Street, and the 16th Street Alley that is the subject of this name change. I will show that on a map in a moment, but first I want to go into a little bit more detail about the reasoning behind the name change request in relation to the Luna family. On the slide projector, or on the slide screen right now, you see Guadalupe Luna, who is recognized as the patriarch of the Luna family. He was a Civil War vet. He was in the last battle of the Civil War, which was in Brownsville. He was part of the Benavidez Regiment for the Confederacy. And he is, I am blanking on the actual place he's buried, but he does have a military recognition on his tombstone as serving in the Confederate Army, living from 1831 to 1924. Another veteran in the Luna family is Jesse Luna, who served in Vietnam and Korea. And an additional contribution of the Luna family is service to church, civic groups, and government for the city of Temple. This shows the area that we are talking about on a map. You see in red going east and west Avenue H. You see in purple a railroad track, and then you see the 16th Street alley and the skinny red area going north and south. And originally on your packets I had colored in the actual 16th Street, so there is some confusion, at least on my part, on this. But 16th Street alley, and then to the north, and I'll have some pictures to go along with this, is Jeff Hamilton Park. And 16th Street alley dead ends right before you would get into the Jeff Hamilton Park area. This is the view of the dead end where it dead ends into, I believe that's Avenue F to the north. Here on the right is sort of a little peek of the park that I showed in the previous picture. This is a view of the alley on the other side of Avenue H looking north. You can see Avenue H going, crossing, and there's a dead end. And of course it picks back up on the other side going north, the alley does. And finally, this is a view of the end of the alley where it runs into the BN and SF Railroad on the south end. And staff can make a recommendation to approve this name change from 16th Street Alley to Luna Lane because it does conform with part of the city's guidelines that it has passed in resolution form that say for a name change to take place, the name change should show gratitude to persons who over a long period of time have devoted outstanding amounts of time, talent, and effort to the advancement of the Temple community. The applicant, Ed Luna, has collected approximately 125 signatures at last count on petitions supporting the name change, and another benefit would be, once again, of eliminating some of the confusion that could result from strangers driving through who see 16th Street and then 16th Street Alley. It could have that benefit as well. And I could answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Council, questions on this item? There being none, this is the first reading and it requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edward Luna, and I was born on 16th Street Alley to Tiburcio and Cayetana Luna. Tiburcio was born in 1899 in Bastrop, and I think all of his brothers also were born in Texas, but I'm not positive. And Tana, which is what they call my mother, I guess the last part of Cayetana, was born in Villa Hidalgo in the state of San Luis Potosí, Mexico. It is about 200 miles north of the Rio Bravo del Norte, also known as the Rio Grande. They were married June the 15th, 1929 in Waco. They had 11 children while they lived 16th Street Alley. Adela, Jesse, Mary, Mary Ellen, Edward, Rosalinda, Ermelinda, Gloria, and Robert. Three of the girls were nurses, one still practicing, two of the girls are housewives, and one was in the Army. One son was in the Army, and the other one, the youngest, Robert, owns a glass installation company in the town of Huntsville. And the other one was a truck driver for a long, long time. And I would like to emphasize that, first of all, this is to honor my mother and father, but I think it was, I think it's to honor all of the Hispanics in Temple, Texas, that have contributed something. Because they were there then and they're here now, and of course there wasn't as many, but I think that they deserve some recognition on the city streets, and I would like to emphasize also that I know that this council had nothing to do with naming streets back in the 20s or whenever they were named, but you have your chance now. So I'd appreciate if y'all would consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, with pleasure on this item.
Motion to approve, and before I take a vote, Mr. Luna and Mrs. Luna, I want to say publicly congratulations on your 50th wedding anniversary in September. With that,
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this first reading of the item considering an ordinance authorizing a street name change from 16th Street Alley to Little Lane. There's no further discussion or questions, Madam Secretary.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 9 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agriculture district to commercial district and an amendment to the South Temple Comprehensive Plan to reflect regional commercial uses on approximately 4.04 acres of land, commonly known as Outblock 781A and 7181AA. City addition located at 4045 and 4153 West Shella Ford Road. Mr. Mabry. Oh. Not Mr. Mabry this time.
No, I'm not. You have someone new. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This subject property is located south of Midway and east of I-35 on Shallow Ford West. The applicant currently owns Snipper's Pet Grooming at 3701 Shallow Ford West and occupies leased space there. Their plan is to purchase property at 4045 and 4153 Shallow Ford West to build a new commercial building. This aerial photo shows you a bird's eye view of the property in relation to both Midway and I-35. Property to the north is occupied by Temple Towing. The land to the east and south is currently undeveloped. And land across Shallow Ford Road West is the location of BMC West Building Materials and the Heart of Texas Manufactured Home Sales. This is a ground view look at Shallow Ford West Road and the subject property. And you're looking on the left picture, a view from the south looking north, and then on the right, a view from the north looking south. Here are some views of the adjacent property to the south, which is undeveloped and an agricultural use. To the northwest, that's the location of the BMC West material sales. And then west along I-35 where the manufactured home sales lot is located. This application will require an amendment to the South Temple Comprehensive Land Use Designation from moderate density residential to regional commercial. You can see here that other uses in the immediate vicinity of the subject property are currently designated for light and heavy industrial use in blue and neighborhood and community retail use in pink. The subject property is currently zoned A, agricultural, which is the default district applied to most properties at the time of annexation. Property to the east and south is zoned agricultural, and land to the northeast and west is zoned light industrial. This slide provides an excerpt from the Zoning Ordinance, which states as part of the purpose of the C Commercial District that it should be located along major thoroughfares and at intersections, and that this district should be located away from low and medium density residential development. Some examples of uses that are allowed in the C Commercial District are retail, vehicle repair and service, indoor and outdoor entertainment, light manufacturing, and mini storage and wholesale warehouses. This slide shows you the area regulations associated with the C Commercial District. The minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet. There's no minimum lot width. The front yard must be at least 30 feet from the center line. The side yard is a 0-foot setback, and the rear yard is also a 0-foot minimum setback. There will be a 10-foot setback, however, applied to this lot because it does abut a residential use. Agricultural is considered a residential use in our ordinance. There were 5 notices mailed to landowners within 200 feet of the subject property, and as of today, there were 2 notices returned to the planning department recommending approval, and there were no notices returned in opposition. Staff recommended approval of this item to the Planning and Zoning Commission because it's located in an area that has established commercial and light industrial activity, and it's located in close proximity to Midway and I-35. Planning and Zoning agreed with our recommendation, and their motion recommended approval of an amendment to the South Temple Comp Plan and a zone change from A to C, and that motion passed 7-0. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Adele. Council, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Could you tell me if there's been any information shared with what type of building or future building they're going to be building on that area?
I have not been given any specific information about that. No. I just know that they intend to use it for the pet grooming business.
28 acres.
Should be plenty of room.
It's just 4 acres.
Excuse me, it is just 4 acres. I was reading the wrong one, sorry. It is just 4, not 28. Thanks.
Council, any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Adele. This item requires public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak to the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council?
Mayor, I'd like to, one thing that troubles me a little bit, there's several items on that have to do with rezoning for commercial and different things. And when you look through this TDC brochure that they're putting out, they're showing nice-looking buildings that we're all glad are here. When we move forward, in a lot of the commercial development around town, you look and you see great-looking buildings, but when we do this and we move forward and we open this up, we're totally at the mercy as to what type of building somebody wants to put up there. And it concerns me that 20 years from now, when we drive through now and we're going, what were they thinking when they built that building? Or some of these buildings that we're just wishing weren't there that are. And it concerns me that we are still moving in that direction, and it's just whatever you want to build. And it's whether it's metal buildings, straight walls, minimum landscaping requirements, and then especially in some of these other ones in areas that are going to be major thoroughfares. And I know there's been some work on the SIS project, there's been some talk on the overlay project, but I think we as a council need to think long and hard about what we're allowing to come up and how it's going to affect how our community looks from the street, how it protects the property values of the people that develop around it. In one of the photos that she showed, the neighboring properties where BMC is, that's a building that's been there 30 years plus. Go back forward one more. Right there. I mean, we could very well just have another building like that. And do we want that? I mean, do we want on just all around town? Do you just want to leave it? Do we want to just leave it open-ended, or do we want to start aggressively moving forward and trying to figure out what we want the buildings to look like? So I think it's relevant that we had our workshop with Jonathan on the SIS. We see this piece that we put out to prospective people, and we show them the buildings what we want them to look like. So just something to think about.
Well, you're exactly right. I think we see an example of that, of something that's built, and the city manager and I visited on that earlier this week on Hemlock Boulevard, right in between 2 beautiful homes in the south side of Temple, and somebody's building a metal garage in between 2 beautiful homes. And there's not a thing supposedly in our ordinances that prohibit that.
Well,
that's all built to code, and the same thing's true with commercial.
what got me on this was a couple years ago, if y'all remember the mobile home that popped up on 31st selling donuts. I mean, it's what do we want? All these prospects that we're bringing into town, all these tours that we're doing, do we want them to I mean, do we have a vision for this community long term? And it's not about a certain kind of building material or not. It's how we want this to look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 20 years from now. And I mean, I personally wasn't real fired up to see a mobile home looking building selling donuts on a prefect just sitting there on, thank goodness it's gone. But that's not right for the people that are developing around it. We want to encourage development and help protect property values. So for however we can do that, I would like to see us move all this redevelopment on I-35 that we've got a real opportunity, but we don't have any control about what goes up there.
That said, this item is merely a zoning change at this point.
I understand.
Anything we can do, about building standards or design standards can be taken up at a point in time that could even impact this one, depending upon how quickly we do that.
But once we vote on these things, they're full steam ahead if they choose.
I presume they certainly could be, absolutely. Now, this particular one would have to come back with a plat, which could be administratively approved if they do the plat without any exceptions. Is that correct, Mr. Dell?
That's correct.
Okay. So, entertain a motion on this item.
I move that we approve and that we look at the standards that we want, come up with something
Again, this is
in the near future.
And again, this is just a first reading, folks. There's a second reading to be held on this, assuming that it's passed on first reading.
In the motion, we can't, for this particular one, go over any kind of structural or, aesthetic look of the building. You weren't, and that wasn't in your motion, was it, Patsy?
No.
Just for approval of the.
Just for
Yeah,
approval
sunshine.
on the first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the first reading on the zone change request from agriculture district to commercial district for the 4.04 acres on West Shallow Ford Road. Further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Yes to go to first, second reading.
Mayor Pro Tem Tyrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Luna?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 10 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the Plan Development Ordinances number 95, 2321, and 96, 2415 to allow the issuance of a building permit for single-family detached homes on a minimum of 2 lots, 50 feet by 110 feet each, for a minimum total lot area of 11,000 square feet. It is Mr. Mabry this time.
Yes, sir, this time it is. This Hilldale Estates is a subdivision that lies at the intersection of Adams Avenue, FM 2305, and Pea Ridge Road. Before I start showing the pictures and maps and everything like usual, I wanted to give a few preliminary facts about the subdivision. It was originally platted in February of 1962, so it is rather old. The original subdivision was 114 acres and consisted of 663 lots. A significant number of lots were taken out for the creation of the West Temple Community Park, which now abuts Hilldale Estates. Most of the lots in the subdivision are 50 feet wide by 110 feet deep. No lots are any smaller than those basic dimensions. No lots are smaller than 5,500 square feet in area. The subdivision was annexed in 1978, and upon annexation, and maybe prior to that even, there were problems noted by the city in relation to drainage, fire protection, code enforcement, and sewage disposal. There was a city-initiated PD created, plan development created in 1995 for much of that subdivision. And then at a later date, there was notice that there were a few lots that were left out of that plan development ordinance, and so there was a second one in 96 that captured a few more lots that had been missed the first time around. The Hilldale Estates subdivision has the underlying zoning district of SF3 as its underlying district, where lot size provisions and setbacks and all of that would apply. The PD puts the following extra conditions on development in Hilldale, and that is that houses are to be located on 3 lots that are of that size of 50 feet by 110 feet, and that those 3 lots have to total a minimum of 16,500 square feet. There has to be a septic tank permit for the lots when they're built on. There must be adequate water. It must front on a public street. There has to be it has to be free of tax delinquency issues before a building permit can be issued. And the SF3 district regulations apply, except that the front yard setback has to be 20 feet instead of 15 feet. Here's the aerial, and it shows the Hilldale Estates subdivision in red, or outlined in red. That West Temple Community Park is in green. And then there's a few residential developments in the area. Across from 2305, you have Sage Meadows, shown in yellow. And Westfield is kind of basically shaped this way. The residential part of Westfield is shaped this way in yellow to the east along Adams. This is about 75 acres. I don't know if that shows up in any of the materials in your packet, but if the park is about a third of the original subdivision, that leaves about 75 acres of area. Single-family detached homes are the most common form of housing in the subdivision. You have 2 kind of arbitrary pictures of just driving around taking pictures of houses. There's 2 of them. There are about, counting the combined lots on the map of the subdivision, there are about 45 to 50 units in the subdivision, allowing for building on 2 lots, as this proposed amendment would allow for. It would create the potential for about 50 to 60 more lots in the area. There are some mobile / manufactured homes in the subdivision. Those uses are non-conforming uses, though, because at some point those uses were removed from the allowable uses in the SF3 district, which again is that underlying zoning district that controls the kinds of uses that can go in the subdivision. So they are continued, of course, to continue to exist. They're allowed to continue to exist, but they couldn't be expanded or things like that, because they are no longer permitted in the underlying district. Modular homes are also listed in the language of the Plan Development Ordinance, and the state requires cities to treat modular homes, which are houses that are brought kind of in components and assembled on a foundation. The state requires those types of housing to be regulated the same way as you would stick-built single-family detached homes. So those are permitted in every district in Temple that stick-built houses are permitted, and including in Hilldale Estates. The proposed amendment to this plan development has come about because due to advances in technology with septic treatment, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality allows septic systems to be placed on the lots in this subdivision would be considered non-conforming lots of record because they've been platted earlier on before they were annexed, and they were a certain size. they were brought into the city, and these small 50 by 110 lots wouldn't be a permitted lot size in the city now, but when they were platted, it was in the county and there was no control, so they, as far as lot size, so they're permitted to continue to exist as a lot. It's just that the plan development currently states that an applicant or a builder or an owner has to assemble 3 lots for a total of 16,500 square feet. TCEQ, again, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, has the policy that on non-conforming lots of record, a septic system can be built on a smaller lot than the normal half-acre size that's required on lots to be served by septic. If certain conditions exist, if the site is big enough, if there are other conditions that a trained engineer would be able to discern. The 3-lot requirement has made home ownership a little more difficult than normal for people who would like to establish a house in Hilldale Estates. So with the cooperation of the Bell County Sanitarian, who is the person who can make that judgment call about the placement of septic systems on certain size lots, and in cooperation with the Central Texas Housing Consortium, this is a city-initiated zone change to allow building of homes on 2 lots that would total 11,000 square feet rather than the normal or the traditional 3 lots totaling 16,500 square feet. In order to build on a lot smaller than 16,500 square feet, the applicant would have to submit a site plan to the Bell County Sanitarian, who would review it and give his okay on the site plan, and they would submit that approved site plan along with their building permit application before they would be able to be issued a building permit from the city to build a house in Hilldale Estates. And still, of course, septic tank permits would still be required as well from the county, as is the current practice. This screen gives a view of the actual amendments to the language of the PD ordinance. You can see in the first, in number 1 up there, the 3 is changed to 2 lots, and the total lot size is changed from 16,500 to 11,000 square feet. And then number 2 is new language that, again, gives the requirement that the Bell County Sanitarian approve the site plan if the person is trying to build on 2 lots rather than 3. And then number 3 is just a cleanup of specifying that the Bell County Sanitarian issues the septic tank permits. This required a rather large mail out to give notice that's required by state statutes whenever there's a change in zoning regulations. 157 properties or notices were mailed out to properties within the subdivision and within 200 feet of the subdivision. As of the 14th, 17 were returned in favor of approval, and 5 were returned in favor of denial. And the ones who tended to be in favor of denial, usually their issue was they were required to build on 3 lots, so everyone else should be. So that was kind of the consensus among the ones who denied. Usually for the approvals, there wasn't really a reason given. They just were in favor of the change. This slide gives the staff and Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation. The staff recommendation, which is to approve or to amend PD ordinances 95-2321 and 96-2415 to allow the construction of single-family detached homes and modular homes on 2 lots rather than 3 lots, and to require that a site plan be approved by the Bell County Sanitarian prior to application for a building permit on these 2-lot assemblies. This recommendation was passed 8-0 by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they recommend approval of the amendment. And I thank you, and I can answer any questions you might have at this time.
Is it, When you say they need to do a site plan approval, wouldn't you have to approve the entire subdivision instead of a spot here and a spot there and a spot there, because you'll get down to a point where it's not going to work?
It would require that when someone is wanting to build on 2 lots, that they submit a site plan for those 2 lots showing where the house would be placed, where the septic system would be placed, and it would be required that the county sanitarian review that and give his approval before it could go on and be submitted to the city for site plan approval. So it would be a site-by-site approval process for the site plan for each.
I would see that if you didn't do the entire subdivision that way, is that you're going to get down to a situation where somebody might not be able to build on a 2-lot because of the size of the configuration of the lot, the slope of the lot, and that type of deal. So you're still going to end up with some lot, people probably forced to go to a 3-lot deal. And the other thing, are we opening ourselves up to, if we change this, any other subdivisions with this zone, we're going to be getting subdivisions now, instead of 16.5, we're going to be getting 11,000 square foot lots requesting septic tanks.
Well, this change only applies to Hilldale.
I understand, but we're setting start setting a standard outside of what we've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a big issue on lot size with septic tank, urban. We just went through a big deal on that as far as lot sizes and septic tanks and no septic tanks and that type of deal.
And in order, my understanding is that in order to be eligible to have a septic tank on one of these smaller lots, the subdivision would have had to have been platted before annexation as small lots, and then annexed later on after the area had been platted. And Michael Johns is here from the Bell County Sanitarian, who I've been mentioning in this presentation, is here. And at the P&Z meeting, he was able to give this information about the TCEQ allowing the septic tanks on smaller lots, provided that they are non-conforming lots of record that have been annexed at a later date.
This will just allow occupation of land that's not been able to be built on, and it'll just sit there unless we do this. There were no rules is what's wrong with Hilldale Estates, and this would have to be a step in the right direction.
Well, the rule is still there, the 16,500, and they just platted the lots, and then when they came in, I mean, the septic tank rule was still in effect, correct?
No, they built on 7-foot by 110-foot lots originally.
Before it came to the city.
Before it was annexed, yeah. So it's in essence.
Other questions? Comments? If not, this item requires a public hearing. We'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 10 with an ordinance change as described. Further questions? Not? Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Tower.
Aye.
Councilmember Lennon.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
No.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 11 is first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agriculture district to general retail district and an amendment to the West Temple Comprehensive Plan on approximately 28 acres of land. Here you go, Mark.
Yeah.
Currently known as Outblocks 2070A and portions 1102A, B, and C of the city addition located at the northwest corner of West Adams Avenue and Hilliard Road. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, here's the aerial of this the subject property. The shaded in areas show what is on the ground, kind of regardless of zoning or future land use. The subject property is 28 acres, shown in red outline on the map, on the aerial. There's some large lot, 5-acre lot, residential uses here across Hilliard Road. By the way, this is at the intersection of Hilliard Road and 2305. To the north of the property, there are some residential lots in what is known as the Fernandez Subdivision, which is just a 2-lot subdivision. Here again is Westfield. Hilldale Estates is a little off the map, but further to the west. But this is the portion of Westfield. A neighborhood retail establishment is down here in red across Adams from the subject property. There's a church across Adams as well, and then a subdivision known as the Meadows is a little further south across Adams. And then the Catsburg subdivision is east of the property on Adams.
Brian, is that an older photograph? Because the credit union is on that southeast corner.
Oh, okay. It's from Yahoo Maps aerials, and I expect when the city has the access to the new aerials that there'll be a much improvement in a lot of the aerials that we're showing. So, Mr. Graham, you said the credit union is
That southeast corner.
Southeast corner. Okay. Here are some views of the subject property and Hilliard Road itself, which runs north-south adjacent to the property. Just agricultural use throughout on the 28 acres. And Hilliard Road, of course, as you can see right now, is 2 lanes, 1 lane going in each direction. Here's some views on the ground of the properties that were shown on the aerial. The church, Trinity Church, I believe it's called, is on the upper left corner. The neighborhood retail establishment that has Shipley's Donuts and a few other uses is there in the upper right. And then there's a couple of the houses that are on the larger lots that are across Hilliard Road from the subject property. In order to get the GR zoning designation, the future land use map for West Temple is required to be amended from agricultural to neighborhood and community retail. This designation permits neighborhood service and general retail zoning districts. The surrounding properties, this map gives a look at what the surrounding properties are zoned. You have most of the property surrounding the subject property is zoned agricultural. Then over here in the upper left is multifamily 2. There's a general retail piece here farther west on Adams. There's neighborhood service where we saw the Shipley's Donuts here. And there's some office designation over here that crosses Adams to the east. The zoning ordinance sets out the purpose of the general retail zoning district. These are listed on the screen. It allows retail sales, restaurants, grocery stores, department stores, or offices. There's a maximum building height of 3 stories, and part of the purpose statement says that it should be located at the intersection of major arterials. There are some uses that might be of interest that aren't permitted. Those are pawn shops, gas stations, auto sales, and vehicle repair, and of course industrial uses aren't permitted in the general retail district.
Would that allow for, such as a convenience store, could they sell gas, but it just doesn't allow for gas stations? Or is any type of business that sells gas considered a gas station?
Well, I would say a convenience store not selling gas would be permitted in the general retail.
Okay, but if they sell gas, they would not be allowed?
Right, they would be commercial, the C commercial district.
Could you put a mini storage there?
Mini storage. I believe that starts being allowed in the commercial district, not in the general retail. I mentioned that part of the purpose statement for the general retail district is to be located along major arterials. This might not be the absolutely most updated version of the outer loop map, but it does give a fairly recent view of what's planned, and it just does show that it will be at the intersection of two major arterials, one being, of course, the outer loop, here shown in red and blue, and 2305 running east and west. It's right at that corner. There were 10 notices mailed out, and as of November 14th, the planning office had received 2 notices recommending denial and 1 recommending approval. The approval came from the owner of the general retail, or actually I believe it was the owner of the Shipley's Donuts in the general retail little development across Adams. The 2 recommending denial, their reasonings were just that they had a residential use and they were concerned about the abutting general retail designation. Staff recommended to Planning and Zoning Commission approval of the future land use map amendment and of the zone change for the reasons shown on the screen. One is that there are several parcels in the vicinity of the subject property that are designated for commercial or office uses as far as zoning and as far as the future land use map. That it is the subject property is across the street from a NS neighborhood service zoning use. That the location of the property at the intersection of 2 major arterials is in compliant. One future arterial is in compliance with the purpose statement for the GR district, and that the existence of a commercial zoning district GR should be more tolerable to residential uses than the potential for a C commercial designation, which would allow some of the uses that were mentioned as far as gas station and as far as mini storage. Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 with 1 commissioner abstaining in favor of the staff recommendation to amend the future land use map from agricultural to neighborhood and community retail, and to approve the zone change from A, agricultural, to GR, general retail. And at this time, I can answer any questions the council may have on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions? Mr. Gray?
Well,
Comment?
just a comment or question, just looking at Code of Ordinances, it looks, I think Brian can help me interpret this, but it looks like for a use defined as food beverage sales store with gasoline sales, that it would be allowed.
Yeah, and I was just informed by better informed people who could look at the zoning ordinance that
They cheated on the
that gas sales are permitted in the GR district. Mini storage is not.
Thank you to the better informed.
In convenience stores, not selling gas, if such an animal exists now, would be permitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, any other questions or comments? There being none, this item requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak before the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Victor Turley, 301 North 3rd Street. Wanted to ask your approval on this item so that this particular development could go forward. It'll be a large-scale general retail sales at that point, and I think that that's appropriate that we've spoken about the new loop and where this is, and obviously this is the appropriate zoning for this particular parcel. So ask your favorable vote on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anyone else wishing to speak before the council on this item? Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council?
Motion to approve?
I would like to make one comment.
Please, sir.
Similar deal as the other thing. I mean, it's and want to be clear why I am voting yes for this. There's a lot of interest in this piece of land. It's one of the best pieces of land development-wise. I don't want to send a signal to out-of-town people that the council wouldn't support development on this, but it still concerns me that we are, no telling what could end up on this piece of property in terms of how it looks right now. So, with that in mind, I'll make a second on that motion.
Okay, we have the motion second for approval of item 11. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Tyrrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Linda?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Item 12, first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance amending ordinance number 2005-4025 to include the planned development site plan for previously approved zoning change for property located between West Adams, FM 2305, and Adams Lane. Ms. Adele.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Since we're in West Adams, why don't we continue on down the road to a property located between West Adams, FM 2305, and Adams Lane. This is a double frontage lot. The applicant is proposing to construct a metal building and to house a Dollar General store. The PD General Retail District was established in July 2005 without a site plan, and that ordinance stated that prior to the issuance of a building permit that the property owner would have to submit an amendment to the planned development and a site plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission and to the City Council. So that's what brings us with this item here tonight. Here is an aerial view of the subject site in relation to Adams Lane on the north and West Adams, FM 2305 on the south. Here you can see development in the area. The subject site is one of 4 lots in Saunders Addition, and JAJ Addition is to the east. Both of these are commercial subdivisions. Hilldale Estates and West Temple Park are to the north. The fire station is here. Sage Meadows Residential Addition has been built out and is in the process of being built out and is located right here. And the remaining property in the area is agricultural and currently undeveloped. Here is what a ground level view of the subject property from the north lot line looks like, looking south toward West Adams 2305. There's a little arrow right here that points to a corner post delineating where the property begins. This is a view looking to the west down Adams Lane toward P Ridge. And this is a view of the right-of-way of FM 2305, which, beginning right about here, slopes up to where the subject property is located, approximately where that, of course, McDoss Loop Center sign is located. Property to the north across Adams Lane is agricultural. Sage Meadows Addition is located south of the property across West Adams 2305. And this map shows the zoning classification of the subject site, which is PD, GR, and the nearby properties. All of Saunders Addition and JAJ is part of this same planned development district. Property to the northwest and southwest is zoned agricultural. To the northeast in Hilldale Estates, that was the subject of an earlier item tonight, and Sage Meadows is zoned SF2. The zoning district states that the GR district is the standard retail district in Temple. It's intended to serve areas that are larger than neighborhoods, and it should be located at the intersection of major arterials. Some of the examples of businesses that are allowed in GR are listed here: restaurants, department stores, and gasoline service stations. There we go. According to the area regulations for the GR district, there is no minimum lot area or lot width. Lot depth must be at least 100 feet, and since this is a double frontage lot, it requires a 15-foot setback on both street frontages and a side yard of 10 feet. This is an overview of the site plan that was submitted by Reeves Development for our review. And when we enlarge that view, you can see that the required area regulations have been met, and the applicant has proposed a screened dumpster pad, adequate loading space,
a pylon sign at the entrance of the property off of FM 2305, and a detention area to the right that will serve the property. And shown in blue is a shared drive that has been approved by TxDOT to serve this lot and the adjacent lot, as well as a cross-access easement right here that will provide access to the adjoining properties. As noted in the yellow box, the project associated with 317 and 2305 will include a cul-de-sac being constructed at the west end of Adams Lane, and that project has a let date of 2007. The green shaded areas here show the proposed landscape improvements, and according to ordinance, this site requires 5 2-inch caliber trees. The proposed plan exceeds these requirements by providing a 6th tree, 14 shrubs, and ground cover. The site plan also includes a landscaped buffer along the FM 2305 frontage right along here, as well as landscaping in the parking island here, the parking island here, and around the pylon sign. So to summarize, the PD amendments that are proposed on this site plan include a shared drive and cross-access, additional landscaping in the form of an additional tree, 14 shrubs, ground cover, the landscape buffer along 2305, and landscaping in the parking islands and around the sign. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this PD amendment, and that motion passed unanimously. And review by staff, both before and after P&Z, leads us to suggest the following conditions should be included in this PD amendment. The PD should include the site plan by reference. It should also state that automatic irrigation and sod be installed throughout the landscaped areas and in the right-of-way of 2305. That split face block should be installed on 100% of the south facade, that's the front door entrance of the building that faces 2305, and stucco on 100% of the east facade. And just as a reminder, our zoning ordinance provides for PDs to encourage innovations in design and layout, to encourage the efficient use of land, and as a mechanism for negotiation between the city and the developer, with the intent of benefiting both the community and the property owner in those negotiations. And some examples of PD amenities that can be considered by the city in those negotiations are building materials, building orientation, building setbacks, landscape amenities, buffering, and screening. This is not an inclusive list. These are just some examples, and that screening can include perimeter fences, screening around mechanical equipment like HVAC and electrical boxes, etc. And the council can add conditions to the PD ordinance at its discretion. We mailed 7 notices to property owners in the area, and 1 notice representing 3 properties was returned in favor of the application, and none were returned in opposition. There was an agent for the owner who spoke in favor of the item at P&Z, and there were no other citizens who spoke on behalf or against the project. And let's see. So, in summary, staff recommendation tonight is approval of an amendment to the ordinance numbered 2005-4025 to include this planned development site plan and this list of conditions. The automatic irrigation and sod are to be installed throughout the entire landscaped area and throughout the right-of-way of 2305. Split-face block must cover 100% of the south facade, that's the facade facing 2305, and that stucco must cover 100% of the east facade. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Would you mind going back to your site plan that had all the nice colors on it? Okay, a couple of questions. One, I'm just curious, was there, the first thing is specifically stipulating materials. Is that, not asphalt, Russell likes that asphalt, but not stucco and split block. Is that something they want to do, or is that normal just to say we want split here and that, or?
The reason we came to that conclusion was We knew that it would probably not be extremely popular to present a metal building in this location. There aren't any in this portion of 2305, so we spoke with the applicant, and they have a building design that includes split-face block, so
So that's the normal front that they usually have.
it is, yes.
And stucco was done because of cost, or?
Right, they had some issues that preempted them from being able to do block on that side, and so they offered up stucco, and staff determined that that was acceptable.
So the east side, you'll be able to see the east side going
When you're heading out toward Lake Belton.
west, and what about the west side going east?
The other two sides of the
coming back.
building at this point would be metal.
Was there a reason they didn't do stucco on the other side that's visible from the road coming?
There's a representative of the applicant here tonight, and
Great.
maybe they could address that.
My name's Sam Evans. I'm with Reed's Development, 825 Ryan Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Good evening, sir.
Sir?
Welcome to our
Oh,
council.
thank you. Thank you. We should go over. The reason that we, did the stucco is obviously is a cost factor. Going into this, we had pre-negotiated, all the costs with Dollar General based on having just their standard building, which is the metal and mansard, the split face block. And, we were unaware of any of these extreme costs. So with that being said, we already had the lease negotiated with them based on those costs. And then when Susan, I guess, had spoken to the city and said that they would like us to upgrade the building, we were able to do that to a certain degree. And so that's kind of why we did it like that. It's mainly was a cost factor. Had we known going into it, like you were stating earlier, that was a cost, Dollar General is usually willing to pay for that. But once they pretty much work out the lease with us, it's pretty much, that's the done deal. That being said, we feel like we've upgraded the building, and pretty good, I guess.
Would you consider going back and asking them to put stucco on the west side?
We've done a bunch of these things. They're not even going to offset the cost for what we're doing now. We're covering that cost. We've already the cost that we've negotiated with them was just a standard deal. It did not reflect the stucco, because usually what we do is, if we do have to do those things, we list them out on there, and then they say, well, why are the rents so high? We say, well, because for this certain area they're requiring we call it exterior elevation upgrades.
You know what could be done, Martha, is the property going west, you could build the building back to back and stucco the west side of the other building, so you'll never see them anyway. So next
That's the one I'm proud
plan
of.
development, you remember that. Build on the other side.
It's dark when you're coming back from the lake.
Yeah, it's dark when you come back from Black.
Thank y'all very much.
This brings up, and I just was asking Jonathan, this brings up a very important point in terms of development. The way that we did this was PDGR, which affords us ultimately, and the P&Z, the ability to make sure that we're getting that way. I would like to see us schedule a workshop and talk about how we start moving that way in future development. Not that we stifle anything, we just say we'd like to see, so that our developers that come in know when they're coming in that there's a chance to do that. Where we could cover ourselves until we get ordinances and different things into place. That being said, stucco on that side, is just it's a deal killer, is what you're saying.
Well, the deal is that basically to stucco one side of that building, we usually figure our cost in at about $18,000 to $20,000 is what, and we're gonna have to stucco that side plus the mansard, and the mansard's about another $9,000 to $10,000. So it's $30,000 that we just boom, So
Are you talking real stucco or EFS type material?
Man, I am not a construction guy.
I'm
but
just
the stucco guys, the construction guys call it stucco, but I think it's some kind of concrete, rub. And I mean, we did a couple of stores in Austin with that on it.
On both sides?
Yeah, well, I mean, going into it, we knew we had to do that. We did the one in Lubbock. I don't know if you guys ever been to Lubbock.
Yeah.
Cat Claw and Curry right behind.
I know exactly where you're
Okay, we did that store there with the stucco on both sides.
It's
And
very nice.
yes. But going into it, we knew it was the same kind of arrangement you guys had here. They had turned it into a PUD or something, and when we went into it, we knew that those were going to be some costs we were going to have to incur. It was written, so when we went to Dollar General, we said, "Hey, look, this is what the store's going to look like," and they're pretty much fine with that. Know it if they're going into it, But once you got a signed lease from them, they're less likely to say, "Well, you just eat it," So that being said. We're kind of. Any other questions?
I'll just make sure I come from the lake. It'll always be dark, so I won't see that.
Well,
Seriously, you could build, could you flip-flop a building and build a 10-foot, is that a 10-foot offset on that west side?
Yes.
And so another 10-foot offset and, dress the west side of it, have a parking lot on there and be done, see?
I mean, if I knew, can I walk over here and
Sure.
approach this? If I can tell you this, this is going to be landscape right here, right?
Right?
I mean, if we knew where the other building was going to go, we might be able to do the stuff over here, or something like that to kind of try to offset some of what you're talking about. So if another car, one building, you don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do something like that.
Well, if you allow this, and we've got several other lots in this PDGR section, so what happens when the next person comes in and wants to do a 50%?
We address it before they get there.
Well, granted, but is it?
We make them move the building
And
high
they're
up.
grandfathered.
What about some? If you did your stucco thing, a portion of it, and then we came in with some shrubs that would help, or some type of natural screening. That's minimal cost.
Yeah, I can't speak to the cost of that, but, I can tell you that may be, something we could do to try to work with you guys. I can understand what you're saying. As far as the whole metal building factor, as you were speaking about earlier. We basically just kind of go in and whatever what's written down, that's what we follow, And had we known all this going into it, obviously, we wouldn't even have this meeting right now. We'd have figured it into the deal, and we'd be going on down the road. So, we want to try to work with you guys as much as we can, but, obviously, we're in the business to make money, so.
Well, you'll make money there.
Well, what we do is we just develop the stores, work out the rents with them, and then once they take possession of the store, we sell the store. We just sell it like a house, so.
So you feel comfortable agreeing to partial stucco
Yeah,
on that
like I was
west?
saying there, maybe go down, I don't know, what do you think?
3/4 of the way?
Maybe something.
Yeah.
Maybe something in here, and like you're saying, doing some kind of shrubbery or something along there.
That should very quickly get some breadth and height to it.
I don't know, Wes could attest to that. We have a landscape architect that works for us, so he could figure that out.
So what, do we table this till we get it specifically in feet?
Well, we'd really like to start measuring, so can we just figure out?
The building is 130 feet deep.
Yeah, it's 70 by 135.
So you could stipulate a specific linear feet or percentage coverage.
Each one of those
Whatever
parking
your
spots
portion.
is like 10 feet. Is that really
You're supposed to know that.
What do you think? These are not big.
Yes, the parking spaces are.
I would do just
Right about where it says 130 would be about 65 feet.
Personally, I think it would look odd.
We just got to set standards.
I think the parking side is where you need to have stucco.
That's where it's at.
We'll take 25 feet.
What about 25 feet?
25 feet?
I think it looks silly with two different materials on that side of the building. I just soon see it all the same color, and the metal be the same color instead of orange be.
Oh no, it'll be.
tan or
Yeah,
something.
Dollar
Something
General
like
has
that.
a specific building that we use, and like the split face block and, all the other stuff, that's all determined by them.
I just think that if we got some control over planned development with the future lots to the west, I think if staff can, try to keep in mind with the next person that develops to the west to try to hide that metal by backing a building up that way and putting a parking lot of the other one that way.
Can we at least, if you think it's not gonna look good, any landscaping there that might grow in to help covering us on that? I mean, is there anything, but we don't know we don't have.
We can work with the applicant to come up with some rapid growing
Yeah.
species. if
I
you
mean,
want
Wes
to.
can figure that out. I mean, he'll know what we need
So,
to put on
is
there.
that clear enough for this deal, John? They're agreeing to land do.
Well, if you want it, put it in there. Say landscaping, so many feet, or
I think when you drive
otherwise
up,
it's just wishful.
Okay,
you
so
see all those parking
Then when you put
places,
another
that's
building
where
there, you're
you
gonna
put
hide it.
stucco,
I mean-
just like you proposed.
Yes,
it
ma'am.
depends how close it is.
I'm okay with it like it is.
Me too.
Me too.
Mayor, can I add one thing to that consideration? Since we'll be reviewing site plans on each of these lots individually as part of this PD, there just is the possibility that there might be conditions on that site relating to drainage needs, detention, that might dictate where a building can be placed. We haven't looked at that adjacent property to know specifics of how it can be developed, so.
And it could be 20 years before something else goes up next to it, so.
If they're agreeable to landscaping, can we not insert that in?
They know landscaping.
You can do that in the motion as well.
All right, man, I'll do that then. I make a motion, we got a public hearing going.
My name is Susan Metter, I also work with Reach Development. I want to make sure that.
Wait a minute, where's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 825 Ryan Street, in Lake Charles, Virginia. Your thing said 100% split face block on the front.
Yeah, that's right.
The bottom is split, but the top will be
The mansard.
stucco. The
Has to be-
mansard will be stucco.
You might describe what the mansard is.
Mansard's
The
where the
top
Dollar
part
General
over the
sign
sign.
is. Yeah, I told her that one. Because the weight of the block is too heavy to go up on there, so they use the stucco.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I told her that.
Did y'all bring this weather with you?
No, but we flew in it, let me tell you. We had to land in McGregor and drive over. Oof, a little spooky. What's that?
You couldn't land at the Temple Airport?
Well, no, apparently the way the runway was, it was a crosswind, and so we had to land in McGregor. And then-
Hurricane wind without the water.
That's right. It's a little spooky there.
You're welcome.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Well, this item requires a public hearing, so I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak to the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. No, just open the public hearing. I'm gonna close the public hearing. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? There being no discussion, Madam Secretary.
Jonathan, do they need to read the conditions into the motion?
Well, are they in there right now, in the proposed resolution?
She forgot about the landscape.
No. No, they are not. They came about after the agenda packet.
Well, we have, in Part 1A, we have split face concrete block is required on 100% of the facade facing F23 to 5, and that probably should be amended to read, except for the mansard.
And the landscaping on it.
And irrigation inside is required to be installed in the entire landscaping area in the right of way, it's F23 to 5. So if you've got something other than that, then I think we need.
With
That
100%
landscaping on the
stucco.
west side was additional.
Well, no, we didn't, that wasn't in the motion.
Oh, it didn't.
That's part of the motion.
Sorry. Excuse me.
But the 100% stucco on the west side, is that all part of it?
No.
On the east side, I'm sorry.
Yes.
100% stucco on the east side. I misspoke.
Yeah, it needs to be amended, because what's in the back, it says 100% of the east facade. It should
Yeah,
say
that's
100%
right.
stucco.
Yes. Because it says 100% split block in the package that we get on the east side. So we're changing that
Yeah.
to stucco.
And so
Is that
there's,
clear?
Will you entertain an amendment to your motion? Well, to coincide with what was proposed by Ms. Adele, to be 100% split face block on the front with the exception of the mansard, 100% stucco on the east side, and the landscaping as proposed.
Well said.
What he said. Okay. And if you'll entertain a motion, or an amendment to your motion.
Motion to approve with amendment.
And the second stands.
Second stands.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem Tyrod? Aye. Councilmember Lena?
Aye.
Councilmember Shatter?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Mayor, can I offer just a couple of quick comments? First of all, I want to say thank you to the applicant for the consideration that was given. The applicant stated a couple of times, and I think staff did also, that when this process started and the rules and the process that the applicant was following was exactly what he should have done and what transpired. As we got to looking at it, I was certainly aware of some ongoing concerns and council discussion about building standards and issues that are relating to that. I had asked staff if they would go back and visit with the applicant about perhaps making some modifications to this process, knowing that there might be a comment or two relative to that as we go through these zone cases and as we've been looking at building and construction standards around the community, both in the context of some general discussions at a very strategic level, but also at a very practical level about what's going up in neighborhoods and what's happening out there on the street. And the applicant was gracious enough to consider some changes and modifications that I want to say thank you for, and I appreciate the work and the effort that they did. I'm certainly also cognizant of the comments that have been made here tonight, and we'll work toward trying to bring forward some suggestions or some items, recommendations for you in terms of building construction standards.
And
Thank you.
with that way, we want a way for us to maybe have a little bit of control while we're formulating the SIS and the overlays and all that. This TDGR is very interesting. I don't recall doing that before. Have we liked it? I guess it's more relevant in terms of what the building is. But
Yeah, I think there are, staff and I have talked earlier this week about maybe 2 or 3 different options or strategies that we may employ, in addition to some of the SIS work or strategic investment zone work that you might do on a more long-term nature. But we'll try to put some options, alternatives together, get it back to a workshop, see if we've got some direction that you'd like to proceed.
thank you.
And may you have a safe trip home.
Can I say that we appreciate the opportunity to deal with some of these issues ahead of time, instead of waiting until after the city council. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
folks. Have a safe trip. Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Item 12 is first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending ordinance 2005.
we're on item 13.
13, thank you. Ms. Circle. First reading and a public hearing, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to planned development, single-family 1 district, on approximately 44.09 acres out of the land most commonly known as Outblock 2523A, City Addition, located southeast of Hogan Road and south of South Pea Ridge Road, east of the Oaks at Westwood Subdivision.
Okay.
Ms. Lyerly.
Yes. And this is a zone change in West Temple, keeping with the theme of tonight. This is a request for a single-family residential subdivision of approximately 152 lots. And if approved, this development would be known as the Southern Draw. The property was previously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission
as the preliminary plat on July 17th of 2006, and the property is currently going through the final platting process. And I have an aerial on the screen showing where this property is located. It's a little confusing, so hopefully I can clear it up on the aerial. It is in West Temple, and it is on South Pea Ridge Road. To the north, we'll have Tarver on the west side of South Pea Ridge Road. But actually what we have here is the intersection of South Pea Ridge Road here and then Hogan Road. And Hogan Road has recently been improved and extended to the east, which you can see there's a little curve here. And so then South Pea Ridge Road picks up right here and goes south. So
Where's the new water tower?
The water tower is right in this area.
Okay, thank you.
And then also I have some developments that are listed on the aerial. We have the Hills of Westwood development, which is a new development that is just being built. And then we have to the west, we have the Oaks at Westwood, and then west of that we have Oak Hills. And then here's a picture of the subject property. That new extension of Hogan Road is shown in the picture right in here where it curves. And the Hogan Road curves around here and then turns into South Pea Ridge Road. The water tower you're asking about is right here, and then the site is right in this area. And if you're familiar with the Hogpen Creek Channel, that is right in this area. And then we have some pictures of adjacent properties. We have looking at from the site, we have looking west, we have the Oaks at Westwood in this picture. And then here's another site of the Oaks at Westwood, but what you can see is the old portion of Hogan Road right in here. And then you have the channel, which is separating the two properties. And then on the bottom picture, you have, it's on that new portion of Hogan Road, but it has the Hills of Westwood to the northeast. And then the channel is shown here in the bottom portion, the north end of the channel. And this is the zoning map that goes along with this request, which shows the whole property that is up for this particular request. And it is surrounded by the agricultural district, and then to the northeast we have single-family 3 zoning, and then to the north we have a planned development office 2 district, which is not developed yet, and then we have the single-family 3 district, which is to the west. And this particular request is supported by the West Temple Comprehensive Plan, which recommends moderate density residential uses. And this particular request is for a planned development single-family 1 district, which would make the single-family 1 district the base zoning for this particular development. And this is a planned development district, which I just have some definitions or the purpose of each particular district listed up here, because actually what we have is a planned development district which allows the variation of the straight zoning district that they're asking for, which is the single-family 1 district. The area regulations are shown on the screen. The only exception that the applicant is asking for that varies from the straight single-family 1 district is that they're asking for a front yard setback of 20 feet instead of the setback requirement for front yards of 25 feet. The planned development single-family 1 conditions, if approved tonight, would be located on the screen as the only uses allowed in this particular single-family 1 district would be allowed in this planned development district, meaning that this planned development district would only allow single-family uses. And then I have a listing of the setbacks that would be allowed, which includes a 20-foot front yard setback instead of the 25-foot allowed by a straight single-family 1 district. And then since this would be for residential development, we would recommend that the site plan approval be through the building permit process for each home that is built on each lot. We mailed out 4 notices, and we did not receive any notices in favor of or in opposition to this request. And staff recommendation is for approval of plan development, single-family 1 district, basically because it meets the objectives of the single-family 1 district purpose statement, and it is supported by the West Temple Comprehensive Plan for moderate density residential uses. And on November the 6th of 2006, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended 8-0 for approval of this request from Agricultural District to Plan Development, Single-Family 1 District, subject to the plan development conditions I listed in the prior slide. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Lyerly. Council? There being no questions from the council, this item requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. If you wish to speak before the council, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Victor Turley, 301 North 3rd Street here in Temple. Wanted to voice my suggestion that you all approve this. This is a, as you've seen the rest of the area out there, this is a large lot, single-family 1 development, and appreciate your consideration.
How many lots would this accommodate?
152.
Sure. Anyone else? Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the item. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Thank you very much for your attention and your attendance at tonight's meeting. Happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. We are adjourned.